We have taken out the blood, the red, and we have changed it for the white of peace. And I want to be positive. I wanted to look for some hope here in this dissertation, and I wanted to ask you, do you think there's going to be an uprising in Russia? There's going to be some kind of new revolution similar to what happened when there was the war with the Tsar and all what happened then. So maybe the people will rise and there will be a kind of civil war and we'll end up with Putin, and then it will be an domino effect, and hoping that Russia will be also in the European Union. It will end with the war against all the other ethnic groups, which is the colonialism that Putin has. And I think one of the problems is that there wasn't any thinker like the colonialism theory against the Russian Empire, and maybe it will happen now. What do you think? Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you, and it is lovely to see all these Russian flags of the future in the audience. No, I don't think there's going to be an uprising. And the reason I don't think there's going to be an uprising is because Putin is much more afraid of protest than he has ever had reason to be. And so there are preventive arrests, there are arrests every time. You know, people, when you read in the papers that, or see on television that protesters were arrested in Russia, it's misleading because a lot of the time, if not most of the time, these are people who weren't even protesting. These were people who were coming out of the metro to a place where the authorities suspect they might be protesting. These are people who were chanting nothing. These are people, you know, maybe one person who was holding up a bank card that says Mir on it, and Mir is the Russian word for peace and also world. But it's a bank card, it's an actual Russian banking system, right? And people have been arrested for that. So imagining a popular uprising under those circumstances is almost impossible, right? And I think if there were a mass protest, it would end the way that it ended in Belarus, which is by just the unleashing by the state of overwhelming force, even when much, if not most of the country appears to be protesting. That's not the way that the regime is going to be brought down, I think, right? Although I'm not in the business of predicting the future. But I think it is important to understand that if we're talking about militarily defeated Russia, we're not talking about a country that has been pushed back to its pre-2014 borders. We're talking about a Russia that we haven't seen yet. For Russia to be militarily defeated, it has its imperial structure is going to have to be taken apart. I don't think Ukrainian forces are going to do it. I don't think Western forces are going to do it. But I think that if Putin's Russia suffers military defeat, it will inevitably lead to its disintegration. Mostly because once the center, which is holding on to so many of the constituent parts of this so-called federation by force, both physical, military force, and financial force, once the center loosens its grip, which it inevitably will as a result of military stress, the country will start falling apart. But also because there is indeed a lot of very important thinking and writing happening about Russia's imperial structure and its colonial structure right now. And that's actually part of what's happening in the imagination. That's part of this work of denaturalizing something that most people who lived in Russia up until 7 months ago took absolutely for granted and never took a minute to think about. And it's the last time I saw this kind of active writing and thinking in the Russian language was in the late 80s, when Russians were confronted with their past and shaken to the core. And I see the same thing happening now with journalists, poets, prose writers, artists, philosophers, trying to think through the problem of being, at the moment, an exiled subject of an empire, and trying to figure out what that means for their personal responsibility in the world, but also for the future of their culture and whatever country might end up being theirs. And that's actually an extraordinary thing to witness.